Hey everybody, welcome back to the Voluntary Exchange Podcast. This is No Chains. I wanted to do a video today about Turkey. There's been the recent news that President Erdogan has threatened Europe with a flood of Syrian refugees unless a safe zone is to be established. Now, I just wanted to give you some background on why he's making this decision and just kind of, because this is a big deal, but this has kind of been brewing for a couple of years here. Now, if you're not familiar with the safe zone, this is what it's supposed to look like. This blue section here would be the safe zone, and I've done previous videos about this agreement between the United States and Turkey. So this area in, I guess you could say, whatever color this is, below, is the area that was controlled and is kind of still controlled by the Kurds, which really just translates into the United States. So this is where the United States is stationed in the east of the country of Syria, and as we know, the Turks and the Kurds don't get along, and the United States' plan was to just give this area to the Kurds for Kurdistan so they could have a foothold in the country forever. But of course, the Turks do not want the Kurds to have any kind of organizational control over any region close to their borders. So I believe the agreement was made. Let me see if I could find the articles. I'll have everything linked, but yeah, the United States did reach an agreement with Turkey. All right, well, that's not working. There it is. Okay. So this was back in August, probably actually exactly a month ago. The United States and Turkey reached a deal on Wednesday, according to both sides, which is intended to reduce the risk of Turkey invading northern Syria. So the Turks would threaten to invade northern Syria to chase the Kurds out if there's no buffer zone. Separately, the long-standing story here, going back a couple of years since the migrant crisis has hit Europe, is that Turkey is the gateway to Europe, and there has been many people who have mentioned and talked about how Turkey was most likely letting a lot of these terrorists who had gone to Syria to fight from countries in Europe and the West. Turkey was allowing them free access back and forth through their borders, which was causing the terrorist attacks in Europe and also the migrant crisis in the north. Turkey has for a long time wanted to be part of the EU, and they are a NATO ally, but they wanted to be part of the EU, and they've been continually denied. And so Erdogan has a weird relationship with the West, and he's cozied up to Russia in response. And we have articles about the arms that have been sold to Russia, or from Russia to Turkey, and who's really going to be Turkey's ally moving forward. Is it going to be the West, or is it going to be Russia? I think, and a lot of experts think, that Turkey wants to be part of the EU, and they're just using the Russians to kind of threaten the United States. If you don't make us your buddy, we're going to be friends with the Russians. We'll stop taking your arms. We'll stop taking your... But they're not really ever going to do that. They are making certain deals with the Russians, and they just completed a deal to get anti-aircraft missile defense systems from Russia, and those have been delivered in the past, as we see here on CNN. So Erdogan's threats are real, and I think the tension really escalated when there was the quote-unquote coup attempt back in 2016, I believe, the summer of 2016, where members of the military of Turkey attempted to overthrow the government in the middle of the night. There's two narratives there. One is that the United States backed that coup and was attempting to install Gulen, he's a cleric who has been living in Virginia this whole time, and they were going to try to install him into Turkey and overthrow Erdogan. This guy, Gulen, right here, preacher. He was an Erdogan ally and now the arch enemy who lives in the United States and has CIA relations. Bigger theory, and the one that I actually think is more plausible, is that Erdogan did the coup on himself. So he backed and pushed for members of his military to attempt to overthrow him when he wasn't even in country. He wasn't even there when it took place, and then he used it as an excuse to crack down and chase out any of the military members in high places that were not loyal to him, and kind of, expand his power and control, which makes more sense to me. He's always wanted to be more a dictator and bring back a more Islamic-focused Turkey, which is kind of the reason he's not been allowed to enter the EU, as the Europeans want to avoid a religious theocracy from being part of the EU. The EU is falling apart now, so who knows what his plans are now. But I've listened to a couple podcasts, and this has been brought up before, that this is all the migrant crisis in Europe is all about Turkey, and at any moment Turkey could open the gates and let in all their migrants. Sorry, my cat is all over me today. Sorry, she's laying on the keyboard, but anyway. So yeah, just be weary of this entering the news. This is a big deal. Turkey is playing both sides. The United States is playing both sides. I covered last week where where Erdogan visited. Let me see if I can find that one. There we go. Where Erdogan turned his back on the rebels that he was backing in Syria and the Idlib province against Assad and the United States, because, again, Turkey wanted to, and they had invaded previously northwest Syria and tried to put a foothold in the country when the United States was backing their arch enemy, the Kurds. He visited Moscow recently and decided to stop backing the rebels with weapons and support, and they didn't take kindly to it, and they began, as this article at Moon of Alabama breaks down, you see here the migrants trying to get north and being stopped at the border by Turkish military, them burning his face, chanting "traitor, traitor, traitor," and there's him eating ice cream with Putin. So he seems to be trying to make a power move here, and I would not be surprised if Putin gave him the idea to threaten the United States with an influx of, not the United States, the West and Europe, with an influx of more refugees if they did not give him the border zone. Now, the United States and Turkey did agree on a deal, so there should be a border zone. I don't know why there wouldn't be, unless the United States is reneging on that, or I know Turkey didn't get what they fully wanted. They wanted this to be wider and deeper into the country, more of the Euphrates River under their command and whatnot. So that might be what it is. But we'll see where this goes. But this is a big deal. Turkey is a very important area. It's something to definitely focus on. So I would definitely keep this in your sights. I will be tracking this as we move forward, along with Hong Kong. But it was a nice break from covering Hong Kong. When I saw this article, I wanted to give you some backstory. So that the relationship between the United States and Turkey has been souring for about 5 years now, since the beginning of the Syrian war, and they have been cozying up to Russia. Now we just have to see where Erdogan's real, not loyalty, but where his real intentions lie. He's trying to become a power player more and more. He even declared yesterday or earlier this week that he believes that Turkey should have nuclear weapons, which is something that I don't know where he would get them from. The United States did have at least nuclear weapons stationed in Turkey, and during the coup, the air base that housed the nukes was off limits to U.S. forces. And again, that's why I think that coup was more of a false flag by Erdogan to show his power and how quickly, at a snap of his fingers, he can really affect the whole world if he decides to do something. Either saddle up to Russia, open his borders, or kick the United States out. So just keep this situation in your daily reading. If you're like me, I like to with my morning coffee, comb through the events of the world, and these are the kind of stories that really draw me in, as their repercussions are a lot bigger than some of the more ridiculous domestic stuff that hits the news here in the United States. So that's going to be it. Just a quick video on Turkey. I'll link to all the stuff I talked about, give you a nice timeline to read if you're not familiar with the backstory here. And I can go into more in-depth about certain areas as and if this escalates, or maybe it breaks down and in a week's time it's not a story. But do keep your eyes on it, because those refugees are there in Turkey, and if they don't get their buffer zone, he might open the floodgates into Europe. I mean, what he said, his idea was, well, if you give me a big border zone into Syria, which is a sovereign nation, of course, we can have all the Syrian refugees live there. I guess. But there's people who already live there, and then just like any other attempt to move a population, there's always going to be drawbacks and there's always going to be repercussions. So that's going to be it for that today. This has been No Chains. Check out our videos over on Decentralized News on our YouTube channel. Truth Force has one up about the Chick-fil-A protests in Toronto yesterday. Gay rights activists laying down in front of a Chick-fil-A, quote-unquote, having a die-in. Just ridiculous. You can check us out also on decentralizedtruth.com and over on 3Speak and the Steam blockchain. 3Speak is a YouTube alternative for content creators. A lot of journalists over there who have been demonetized or banned from other platforms, and it gives you an opportunity to get your content out to a new and expanding audience and make a couple bucks in the process. So until next time, this has been No Chains. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to you guys later.